everyone, welcome to another week on the Brushed by Brandy YouTube channel. My name is Brandy. I am the owner and artisan behind Brushed by Brandy, and this week we are working on this piece behind me, which is a really cool piece. This is actually a lingerie chest, so there's a lot more up there you can't see. And then I'm doing a matching vanity, and that'll come in a separate video, but they're gonna have same finishes, and it's really cool how you can take mismatched pieces of furniture and tie them together using finishes. And that's exactly what we're gonna do here to make a finish out of this set. The other thing we're going to do this week is we're actually going to blend metallics into regular paint, and it's totally possible and it's absolutely beautiful. I'm going to talk to you about tinting metallics when they're not exactly the right color that you want, that it's totally possible to tint them. We're going to add some silver leafing details with stenciling. This piece is all about glam and luxury, and it's all going to be in the whites and the grays family. So even though it's not a lot of color, there's going to be a lot of interest, and then we're going to pop in little bits of red even. So I think this is going to be a really beautiful finish. I love the blend that's going on it already, but wait until you see what we do on top of that. No shortage of interesting finishes on this piece. So you guys stay tuned. We're going to cover a lot this week, and let's go ahead and get started on this one. Here's the before on this one. I'm going to get started by making some repairs to bring this up to date. So my drawers have these moldings on them, and I actually feel like they're going to be a hindrance for the design plan for this piece. So I want to go ahead and I want to fill them. And what I'm going to use to fill them is going to be Bondo. So this is the product that I'm using. It's the all-purpose putty, and I'm going to go ahead and mix up my Bondo right now. This does have a strong odor, so I recommend working in an open space and mixing small portions at a time because it does dry fairly quickly. So I'm going to take a little bit of the putty and put it onto this paper plate here. And once I've gone about the amount that I want to mix, I'm going to go ahead and take a little bit of the hardener, and I'm going to squeeze that out onto my plate as well. All right, those are about my proportions that I'm using, which is the hardener, which is the red, and then the putty, which is the gray. And then I'm just going to take my popsicle stick and I'm going to stir those together. Once it turns an even shade of pink, then I know that my putty is evenly mixed and I can start applying it to my piece. What I'm going to use to apply it is going to be my Dixie Belle Thingamajig tool, which is this silicone spatula tool here. And I have a little bit dried on here, but let me show you how easy it removes. I did not clean it from last time. I can just flex my tool and it's going to pop off the excess. That's the nice thing about silicone, is nothing bonds to it. So I'm going to take my tool and scrape a little bit of my putty, and I'm just going to use this to fill in that piece of molding on my piece. This will take about 20 minutes to dry, and then I can come back and I'm going to sand this even with the front of my dresser, and I will have filled these moldings. You'll never know that they were a part of my piece. And now on my drawer that's dry, I'm going to go ahead and sand it smooth so that it matches this side. I'm going to use my Surf Prep sander, and I've got an 80 grit sandpaper on here. I'm going to go ahead and turn on my vacuum and get this sanded smooth. All right, those are sanded perfectly smooth. It looks pretty terrible, but once I get another coat of my Dixie Belle Boss on here, this will be a nice even surface, and you will never even know that that detail on my piece existed. My next step is going to be adding my Dixie Belle Boss. So I'm going to go ahead and take my Dixie Belle Mini, and I like to dampen my brush just a little bit and then work that bit of water in. It helps the Boss just spread more evenly. Boss is a stain and odor blocking primer that brushes on just like a paint. I need it on this piece because it's made of pine, and those knots can have a tendency to bleed through my paint. I want to go ahead and do my drawer sides in the silk line using salt water, and I'm choosing the silk line for my drawer sides because these are solid wood drawer boxes on this piece, and using silk means I don't need to prime it, and I don't need to seal it if I don't want to. So Dixie Belle Silk lays on really nicely. I'm just going to use my Dixie Belle mini brush. It has a built-in stain blocker, so this raw wood will not bleed through even though I'm using a white paint. It's going to require 2 coats to go ahead and coat these drawer boxes, and I'm just going to do the sides. So how I work silk is I will work it in 1 strip at a time. And I make sure I get my brush strokes going all the way down, clean those up, and then I come to the next spot. So I just work small areas at a time. It is a little bit different than the chalk mineral line. It tends to set up a little bit quicker. And so I try not to brush over the areas that I've already done, because once they start setting up, if I brush over them, I will be prone to brush strokes in my finish. And then I'm just going to get the very edge of this drawer box, and I just use that using a horizontal brush stroke. And that's going to give me nice, clean drawer boxes. So I'll do 2 coats on all of these boxes, and then I'll have a nice, clean white drawer box. Right, for the paint finish on this, I'm going to do a light textured finish. And I'm just using my Dixie Belle Oval Medium, and I'm dipping it into my fluff, which is my paint color. And I'm just doing a stippling pattern. And this is just going to leave a light texture in the paint. I think this is going to be really pretty with the leafing that I plan to put over this paint finish. And I don't just want the solid color, I want to add a little bit of interest. So this just adds just enough. So I'm going to do this coat. This is going over my Dixie Belle Boss primer. And then I will, once this dries, I will come back and just repeat this in a second coat and have 2 coats like this. Down at the base of my piece, I'm just going to blend my coat of fluff into some metallic paint. I've taken my Dixie Belle Silver Bullet and I've tinted it with just a little bit of caviar paint. This created this beautiful gunmetal gray paint. And the key is when you're tinting the metallics, you don't want to use too much paint. If you tint it with too much of the flat paint, you can lose the metallic qualities. So for this, I just added a few drops of caviar into a bowl of my Silver Bullet, and I got this beautiful color. So I did give this a base of Hurricane Gray underneath my metallic, and that's because the metallics don't have as much pigment as the regular paints do. So you want to give it a base of a close color, and that's just for coverage underneath the metallic. With that Hurricane Gray underneath, I can go ahead and brush my Gunmetal Gray over the top, and then I'm going to start working it into my fluff. Once I lay on my gunmetal, I'm going to just take my Best Dang brush from Dixie Belle and I'm going to work these 2 colors together. I'm using a swirling motion and I'm just working the colors into each other until I get a nice even blend between the fluff and the Gunmetal Gray. The Best Dang brush doesn't give you the smoothest blends. It gives you these kind of cloudy mottled blends that are beautiful, and I think it's perfect for the look of this piece. Now I'm going to move on to the front, and I start off with the same process. I've got my base of Hurricane Gray already on the body for coverage, and now I'm going to brush over it with my Gunmetal Gray. I did take the drawers out, and that's because these drawers have a little overlap where the face overlaps the frame, so I need to be able to paint underneath and get the frame. I always paint the insides of my frames, you guys, even if you don't always see it on camera. I always take those drawers out and get just inside the frame. The bottom drawer where there is no blend is just going to be the solid Gunmetal Gray, so I'm just going to paint that in the solid color. And then I'm going to go ahead and work a blend on the second drawer up, and that's where I decided to start transitioning my gray into the white of the body. I did decide to come back on my bottom drawer and just add some brush strokes with my Best Dang brush to give it an almost brushed metal finish. I love this look, you guys. And here is my basic paint finish when I'm all done. I've got my base in my gunmetal gray. And now I'm going to come back and I'm going to add some clear coat over the top. So why clear coat, you ask? So I'm going to go ahead and protect this paint finish. I know that I want to add some silver leafing over the top, but the clear coat is going to seal off this paint. And it's for a couple things. It lets me play over the top of my paint without having to worry that I'm going to ruin my paint finish. It also makes a nice smooth finish so that my silver leafing will not want to stick into my paint. All right, I've let my clear coat dry overnight, and now I'm ready to come back and do my silver leafing. This is probably my favorite part. You guys, I'm using the new Victorian Damask stencil from Dixie Belle. This stencil just came out, and I'm using it a ton. I think it's my new favorite stencil in the line. So I've placed my drawers out and I've spaced them evenly with what their spacing would be on the body of my piece. And then I just took my stencil and I sprayed a little bit of 3M Super 77 spray adhesive over the top. What this does is it leaves the stencil in the design of my stencil itself, but it's going to be stenciled in adhesive. With leafing, the key is you need a tacky adhesive. And so I love the Super 77 because it gets tacky right away. It makes this look really easy. Once I've got that done, I can lift my stencil off and then I come back and place silver leafing sheets over the top of the adhesive. When I brush it away just using a chip brush, it's going to reveal a pattern in the design of the stencil itself. This is stenciling in silver leafing. You can use a gilding wax or a mousse to do this and also get a similar look, but I find that nothing has the shine of a leafing. When you put this in the light, it absolutely sparkles. When I do this, I always get comments on how much waste there is from this process. I agree, you guys, there is a lot of waste, but the good thing is this is imitation silver leafing. I never buy the real thing. This is available in my Amazon shop. It's really inexpensive. I think I used about 2 packages of leafing here, and each one costs about $6. So the waste doesn't really bother me at all. If you do resin projects, you can actually capture all your waste and you can save it and put this in resin and it's really pretty. I just go ahead and vacuum it up. It's really not worth the time for me to sweep it all up. It just becomes kind of airborne when you try to clean it. This is a messy project. You will end up with silver leafing all over your hands, spray adhesive on your hands. You start getting sticky. I do have to wash my stencil every few uses and my hands as well because I start getting pretty sticky. I'm going to repeat the same process up the side of this piece. I attach my stencil, spray over the top of it with my 3M Super 77 spray adhesive. Now I'm going to place my sheets of silver leafing up the side of my piece. And then when I come and brush it back, it's going to, of course, reveal that stencil. Another little tip, if you dust your body with a little bit of baby powder and then put your stencil on and your spray adhesive, it will help the silver leafing brush away easier from the parts that don't have the adhesive on them. I didn't do that here because I find with the clear coat on, it brushes away pretty easily. But if you find that your silver leafing is wanting to stick to your body, use a little bit of that baby powder underneath your stencil. One thing I love about this look is the imperfection of it. So if you have a perfectionist eye, this is going to torture you, but it's actually meant to look like it's really old aged gilding. And so I love the imperfect lines of it, how some of it comes out a little bit flawed, but it absolutely adds character to the silver leafing. It's a beautiful finish. There's a few shots here as I move the camera around where you can start to see the gleam of the silver, how it catches the sunlight. That's what I'm talking about. That's a look that you can't get with any other sort of metallic product. So once I come and I dust away my silver leafing using the natural bristle brush, I use a natural bristle brush because it's a little firmer and more abrasive. It's going to get rid of all that excess. But then I also come and I buff over the top of it using a soft cloth. And that soft cloth just gets any little hanging bits or anything that might still be on the leafing and really cleans up the surface. This lingerie chest is actually part of a 2-piece set, so I have a vanity that I'm doing in the same finish, which meant I did silver leafing for 2 days straight on these 2 pieces. It can be a little bit time consuming. Once I finished one section, I just came back and did the next. It did take quite a bit of time, but it's so worth it, you guys. It's one of my favorite looks. The best tip I have for this would be to make sure you have enough silver leafing on hand. Worst case scenario would be to have to run to the craft store and try to find some because you ran out. This took quite a bit between these 2 pieces, so I just made sure that I ordered a bountiful amount before I got started on these two projects. With my silver leafing all done, I did decide that I wanted to layer this with some silkscreen stencils. So this is a custom order, and this customer had sent me pictures of her bedding and everything that was in her room. It's got shades of gray and black and red and white. And so with red as that accent color, that's actually her favorite color. I want to pull that out in some of the special accents. She also happens to love Paisley, and I have a Paisley design in the silkscreen stencils, so it's perfect. I love the layering of this pattern because it really makes the red stand out. So all I'm doing is I lay on my silkscreen stencil, and then I'm coming over the top with Dixie Belle Rustic Red and a silicone spatula tool, and I'm just scraping a little bit of paint over the top, pull my stencil away, and I can do several placements of the silkscreen before I have to come back and clean it. I probably did 4 or 5 placements, and then I had to clean my silkscreen each time. This step here, I'm adding some wax detailing. I'm just going to shade into some of these moldings using a little bit of Besting wax in black from Dixie Belle. I use Besting wax in black on just about every project. I love how the black wax shows up against the white paint. And then I've got this sort of aged stencil look. So the black wax adds a little bit of aged look to this finish. Here it is all done. You guys, these pieces are gorgeous. I wish you could see them in the sunlight, but look at these photos. You can see a little bit of the reflection from the silver. I added some silk screens to my drawer sides. I, of course, clear coated over the top of this piece once I was done. It's all finished, you guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, click that subscribe button, and you can find more Brushed by Brandy on Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, and YouTube.